So I'm gonna build a gaming PC. But not just any gaming PC. A very, very cheap gaming PC. In this box is something that I won a very, very cheap bid for, and this right here is the catalyst for the cheapest gaming PC I will probably ever build. And all I'm trying to do here is show people that you can build a gaming PC really cheap. You don't have to buy everything new, you don't have to get everything right away. All it takes is a little bit of time and patience, possibly winning some bids, searching around things like Craigslist and used PC parts stores, and you can build something amazing for a very, very small amount of money. Oh yeah, looks pretty good. So I got this card for $60. This is a superclocked EVGA GeForce 770 with 4 GB of RAM. It's their FTW edition card with a really good cooler. This thing is absolutely sick. Now initially I was just gonna sell this card and say, you know what, I'll take my profit. I got it for 60 bucks, I'll sell it for like 150. Pretty good profit. We'll take it there and, you know, that's it. But I decided to do something a little more interesting than that. I don't know how long this video is going to take to make. I'm probably going to have to make it over the course of like weeks. However, when it's done, hopefully I will have a sub like $400 awesome gaming PC that can play pretty much anything. But first I have to test if this thing works. I'm just going to toss it right in here because why not? I want to use this card in here so bad because look how perfectly it matches the color scheme of my motherboard. And the only thing that sticks out like a sore thumb is this big green GeForce logo, but I'm getting a 980 and this is only a 770, so I can't really, but I want to. I may have to move some power cables around and stuff, but yeah, we'll see what happens. So yeah, I have two 6-pin connectors here, and it looks like I need an 8-pin. How does a 750 watt power supply only have two 6-pins for graphics cards? Side note, the outside of this case is incredibly dusty, but the inside is immaculate. Good job, Corsair. This is BS. I have an 8-pin right here, but this is like a motherboard connector. This isn't for graphics cards. We're gonna see if we can find an adapter. I am not letting this stop me. Motherboard extender. Ooh, hold on. Two 6-pins to an 8-pin. But that doesn't help. So I've actually worked with one of these cards before, and I was able to find the old box. I'm gonna see if we can do something about this. Maybe there's a connector in here that'll help me. Okay, it's a SATA connector, that doesn't help me. And it looks like another 8-pin to two 6-pins. God dang it. Ooh, this could do it though. This looks like a 2 Molex to 6-pin adapter. So I might have to jerry rig it a little bit, but that way I could use both of my 6-pins for the 8-pin and then use 2 Molexes for the 6-pin. Oh, this is gonna be weird. Okay, so it's not perfect, but it works. I was able to get it to, you know, get all the proper power hookups and whatnot using adapters. The Molex connector is what really saved my life. Now I have full 8-pin power going to my motherboard too, which the 4-pin power connector I had in there was never a problem, but since I found that 8-pin extender, like, why not? So it's no longer detecting my SSD, which is what has the operating system on it, which is why it's not booting. We're gonna fix this. Okay, so since the only configuration thing I changed when I put the graphics card in there was that I hooked up that 8-pin power extension for the motherboard, I figured that had to be the issue because what else could it be? So I went back to just using the 4-pin, and now the computer works. So it turns out the motherboard that requires an 8-pin to function doesn't function if it has an 8-pin inside of it, and it does function if it has a 4-pin. So, yeah, graphics card works. Part 1, success. So I've been hitting the Craigslist listings hard. I'm really looking for, I originally wanted to go with like a motherboard CPU combo to start, and then like after that go with something more, you know, like get a power supply elsewhere, get a case elsewhere, but really, I found out through surfing Craigslist the best way to do it is to just buy a pre-built PC without a graphics card and see what kind of value you can get for that. So I started with a Dell Inspiron 660. It had an i5 Ivy Bridge processor, 8 gigs of DDR3, and then it had a 1 terabyte hard drive. The main thing that drew me to it was a 500 gig Samsung Evo SSD, Samsung 850 Evo SSD, and this guy wanted $200 for the whole thing. That really drew me into it, but there was some sketch there. Once I messaged him, I asked him about the Samsung Evo. He said, oh, actually, it's going to be a SanDisk, not a Samsung. And I was like, oh, well, I don't really have great experiences with SanDisk SSDs, so I was like, yeah, I'm not really too down for that. Even though it's still a 500 gig SSD, I really don't like SanDisk. He's like, don't worry, the SanDisk is new in box. We're going to install it once you come to get the PC. And I was like, okay, so how about this? I'll go get the PC. Don't even install the SSD. Don't waste an OS install. I can do that myself. I'll take the SSD new in box just so that I know for a fact that it is a new SanDisk drive, and that'll make it a little bit more worth it for me. Like I said, he wanted $200 for the whole thing. And then, once I said that to him, he's like, oh, we already installed it. I'm like, but you just said you didn't install it yet. So basically, it was way too sketchy. I think the guy was trying to give me a super used SSD and pass it off as like a new one. And it was different from the one he initially listed anyway, so I didn't go for that one. Next, I found this. This was like a godsend. This thing was an i5 4670K CPU, 8 gigs of RAM, a 250 gig SSD, a 1 terabyte drive, what looks like potentially like an Antec 600 watt power supply. He didn't actually have the power supply listed, but it looked really good. The graphics card I didn't even pay attention to because I don't need a graphics card. I have one. This guy wanted $200 for this whole system, and I was super hyped. And I messaged him, and he got back to me a few hours later saying he had just sold it that day. And I was crushed. I was like, this is it. I don't know if I'm going to find something better than that. But I kept grinding, I kept looking, and I found something that initially wasn't the most tantalizing thing ever. So basically, I found a mid-range gaming PC listing on Craigslist. It was an NZXT S340, an Intel i5 6500. It's not a K, but it's still a 6500. A Gigabyte Z170 Gaming 3 motherboard. The graphics card was a 1060, which is right around like a $300 card, and 8 gigabytes of RAM with a 650 watt bronze certified like 80 plus power supply. I was super hyped. I saw this, I was like, but it's $600. I messaged the guy, I was like, would you be willing to part it out? And he said no initially, and then I was like, well look, I don't want you to like part it out, like just give me the RAM, like I want to buy the whole PC, just not the graphics card. Could you do that for me? And he was like, you know what? Let me see if I can find someone to buy my graphics card, and if I can find somebody, I'll sell you the rest of the PC for like $350. I was like, oh my god, $350 for all that? That's amazing. In my head, I'm like, Jesus, that would solidify this as like one of the best budget builds I've ever done. And I messaged him, and I was like, look, man, I really need this to be like, to stay under 400. I already spent $60 on my graphics card. I really can only afford 300. Would you be willing to like maybe compromise a little bit? Maybe I could give you a part that you need or something. And he was like, well, I don't really need anything, but I might be willing to go down on the price a bit. And I got super hyped. So I'm in contact with him right now, actually. He gets out of work in a half an hour, and I'm supposed to go meet up with him to grab this gaming desktop, and I'm super hyped about it. It also has a liquid-cooled processor on top of all that, and a lighting kit inside of the case, which would make it look awesome. And the case is an S340 NZXT. That's like an $80 case by itself, so I'm really, really excited. If I can get this PC, it would be great. Now, I just have to see if, like, I can get somebody that might want to take me there. Like, my friend Dane, I'll tell him I'm building a gaming PC, and, you know...
Gaming PC?
How long?
Yes.
Alright, let's make this happen. So it's definitely the same day. The skit you just saw with my friend Dane definitely wasn't yesterday, and the guy definitely didn't bail on us for that day. And then say that today, you know, would work out fine. That's definitely not what happened. See, there's Dane. It's right there. So at the end of it all, for $400, I've ended up with an Intel Core i5 6500 processor, a Gigabyte GA H170 Gaming 3 motherboard, 8 GB of Crucial Ballistics Sport memory, an EVGA GeForce 770 superclocked 4 GB card, all being powered by a 650 watt 80 plus bronze certified power supply, and a 120 GB SSD, all inside of an NZXT S340 case. Now for the storage for the 120 GB SSD, I chose to just take mine out of my computer and put it in there because everything here except for the SSD costed me $360, and everyone knows you can get a 120 GB SSD for $40 or cheaper very easily. So I figured instead of going through the hassle of trying to find one to put in the build, I would just put mine in so that I could get this video out to you guys. The motherboard looks gorgeous. It has black and red accents and some silver on the PCI Express slots. Whoever had this case before me and this whole setup in general treated it really, really well. The cable management is phenomenal, and I'm actually really impressed with this case. It has good mounts for like the solid state drives. It's very roomy in there despite the case itself being so small. It's very clean. The guy who had it before me kept it incredibly clean, and that's not to mention that the processor is being cooled by an Asetek all-in-one liquid cooler on top of that I got with this. So we are talking about some pretty serious value for $400 or less depending on what you could have gotten the SSD for. And now all that's left for me to do no more excuses. If I ever get another message that's like, oh, I only have $500, how can I build a strong gaming PC with only that? No more of that. I better never get another one of those messages again because I just built a PC that just played Crysis maxed out at 4K for less than $400. I don't want to hear it. It can be done. You can do it too. If I can do it, you can do it. Be patient. Go on Craigslist, go on Letgo, go on a bunch of different sites. Try to find the best deals you can. If people reject you and say, no, I'm not accepting that offer, move on to the next person. Keep going until you find somebody that'll give you the value that you're looking for, that'll give you value like this. Take weeks, take days, take months if you have to. Take your time and put together something that's really, truly worth the money. In fact, you know what? Just for fun in post, I'm going to go ahead and put the price right here of what this PC would cost if I were to build it brand new. Just to give you an idea of the kind of value that I got by taking a few days out of my life to talk to people and haggle and work out deals. This is not only the cheapest PC I've ever built, but it's one of the strongest I've ever built. This is what happens when you take your time. For the amount of time I put into it, this thing could not have turned out any better. And like I said, the only reason I made this video is because I wanted to show you guys that you don't need a ton of money to build a good gaming PC. This thing can play games in 4K. Can it play them perfectly? Absolutely not. But if you're on a budget and you're building something like this, hell, you probably don't have a 4K monitor. You're probably playing in 1080p, which is fine, and you're going to get way better performance than if you were playing in 4K on this thing. I would show you 1080p results, but I'm sure from seeing the 4K results, you could probably guess how this thing functions with 1080p gaming. Guys, I was super excited to make this. I'm really happy with how it turned out, and I hope you enjoyed this first video on this channel. Hopefully there are many more like it to come. Let me know in the comments what you would want to see next, because I'm not really sure where to take it from here. But as for right now, I'll see you guys next time.